Hi, I'm Simon Hartley.
And I'm Helen Gilmartin.
Welcome back to Pep Talks. Helen, today we're joined by a friend of mine, Paul Lindley. Paul founded Ella's Kitchen back in, he'll correct me in a minute, I'm sure if I'm wrong, back 2006, and also wrote a fantastic book called Little Wins, and it's all about the power of thinking like a toddler. Paul, you use a phrase in the book which I absolutely adore, which is childlike thinking. What do you mean by childlike thinking?
Well, hi Simon, thank you for inviting me on. What I really mean by that is going back to a time where every one of us were. So being able to think like a child is not something we have to learn, it's kind of going back into our own memories. But children don't know the rules, they don't know consequences, the world is all new and they discover it and explore it and succeed in doing that. And they aren't they are we. We've all done that. So my whole book and my learning from setting up my business was really, if we can have an open mindset, if we can have an imagination and a free thinking, a self-confidence, an ambition, a determination, playfulness, all those things that we had as children, if we can bring some of that out in our adult life, we will find more solutions, we will discover the world in a new way, and it will lead to improvements, whether that's inventions and innovation, or just the way we deal with each other.
I think you mentioned in the book as well that we create comfort zones so that we don't fail, and that is really true in businesses. As we're part of teams, you come up with an idea, and I'm involved in the marketing world, but you come up with an idea that's new and inventive, but you invest in it. So if people don't feel it or see it, you're absolutely correct. We tend to step back and say, let's park it there. And I think Dr. Toddler talks about it being the sacred cow. Things are always done this way. I don't want to change it. So how in businesses can you open that innovation and make people more creative?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, broadly as adults, we live in this paradox almost in terms of every new day that happens is a day more experience that we've got. And therefore a day that we should be able to deal with the world and explore the world and understand the world better. But what we do as we get older in those extra days, we do the same thing as we did the day before and the day before that. And we have 10 meals a year recycled. We go to the same pubs, meet the same friends, watch the same TV shows because we get into this comfort zone. And that translates into the business world as well, so that we're frightened of going into the unknown, of failing, of making mistakes, because the time pressure is so short, or we're not given the permission to have the autonomy to fail. So I think with sort of business decisions, marketing and branding especially, we don't explore enough of what the outside, the edges of where we can take our brand or where we're relevant to our consumers. I think brands, the point of a brand is to validate your consumer's view of the world. It's not for you to push your ideas onto the world. It's for you to understand your consumers and then validate their way that they see the world by what you provide, and everything about your brand helping them. And far too few businesses explore it from that angle and then put themselves in the consumer's point of view and look back at the brand themselves. And I think thinking like a toddler, thinking sort of imaginatively and fearlessly is something that could help us do that.
We were chatting the other day about the value of play, of having kind of playful thinking, be able to play with ideas. And when kids play, they don't really have any concept of it being wrong or it failing or making mistakes. And they do genuinely become far more spontaneous and creative and engage their imagination. And actually play is really powerful, isn't it?
Play is hugely powerful. And actually, there's another paradox. If we Googled now what play meant online, it would say something like it's about entertainment or enjoyment for the moment for no other purpose. And I think that's totally wrong, because play teaches us spatial awareness, it teaches us teamwork, communication, strategies, different ways of getting there, creativity, a whole load of things in a safe space. So when we were all little and we dressed up and pretended we were people who we worked from our dressing up box, that's a safe place to explore another personality or another part of yourself, or explore part of yourself. That's what we did. And I just think, again, we should either in real life dress up, or virtually, or find an analogy to dressing up, to be able to keep us into a safe space as adults at work or in our social lives, so that we can explore ourselves, explore the impact of things that we do in a safe environment. But we have to explore. This world has got so many problems that we keep putting the same solutions to and hoping that there's a different answer. Our businesses have unbelievable problems in challenges in fast-moving pace and being able to be competitive. And if we don't experiment and be prepared to fail with the things that we're trying to do and learn and adapt from those things, of which toddlers, every one of us did all the time. When we had the privilege to learn to walk, we fell over 500 times. Now, you know, between the first and the second time, we didn't do the same thing we did in the first time. We learned something that first time. And then the 399th time, when we actually walked on that 400th time, we put it all together. We should be able to do that much more in our adult world. And I think corporate culture, following on from our education system, teaches us to conform all the time. And we need to find ways within business, within life generally, to be able to try things new and not be penalized for failing if we learn and adapt from what we've done, just as we as parents teach our children.
Yeah, and actually I think there are some really good examples of where businesses can potentially adopt that childlike thinking. I mean, I was thinking about one of those challenges that airlines are facing. Apparently airlines are going to take out the middle seat. And I was thinking, okay, so how do you best use that middle seat? And how would a 5-year-old do it? You know, what kind of ideas would they come up with? Or if you even engaged your childlike thinking, how would you do it? And as I was walking the dog this morning, I was thinking, okay, if I engage my childlike thinking, what kind of solutions would I come up with? Maybe you put a perspex board with noughts and crosses on it or something like that. Or why not computer battleships or Connect 4 or something that would actually allow potentially somebody to come off that flight and go, that was amazing. I'm going to tweet about that, you know. And it's that.
In my book, I took 3 examples of exactly that thinking, how innovation, invention, actual whole companies have been founded on the thinking or the innocent question of a toddler. Back in the 50s, there was this little girl called Jennifer, and she used to go on holiday with her parents, and they used to take photos, and she asked her dad, can I see the photo? And he said, no, we have to wait for the end of the holiday, take it to the pharmacy and bring them back. And she said, why? And, you know, he thought, well, why? And he tinkered around for a couple of years in his shed, I think, and he created the Polaroid camera. Now, 10 years later, every second American household had one. By the 1970s, 1 billion photographs were being taken on Polaroid cameras only because a little girl had asked why she couldn't see the photograph straight away. That whole business was formed on that. In the 70s itself, a little boy called Adam asked his dad what a tickle looked like. A question an adult would never have asked, right? What does a tickle look like? So his dad and he sat down and they drew a tickle and they colored it in, and then they wrote a little story around the tickle, and that became the first Mr. Man, and the Mr. Men series came about from that. And that's 140 million books have been sold on that. There's franchises and licenses everywhere. Our whole business for years has been built because a little boy asked a question. And I know in my own company, when I founded Ella's Kitchen, we had created some smoothies as the first product, and we didn't know which ones to go with or what the flavor profile would be. So we got a whole load of 4 or 5-year-olds around our table. Ella's my daughter, Paddy's my son, their friends, and asked them which one they preferred. And Paddy straight away said, I like the red one because it's like my fire engine. It's the same color. And little friends had nodded and they tasted it and they agreed. And we went with that product, which was raspberries and strawberries and bananas and apples. But the point is, I thought later that night, oh my God, he called it the red one. We should call it the red one because that is what a 4-year-old thought of. And I was on my long list, never mind short list of what we should call our product. And that's the most successful product that Ella's Kitchen had, and spawned a whole load of ideas around different ways of naming products. You've got to listen to our inner child and listen to children.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been talking about that quite a lot, myself and Simon, and with a lot of the speakers, that using this time to become more creative in your business and your personal life is hugely important. You mentioned in the book about Robert Kennedy's speech, The Ripples of Hope, and I was thinking about that now at the moment where we are stepping back and have time, some of the attributes in that were courage, adventure, imagination, and that speech is whatever, it's
52 years old.
Odd years old, and today if he gave that speech, and I think people should look, I know you reference this in your book, it's an incredible, powerful message for this time that we're in. And so what was it about that linked that to your business, that message?
Well, I have the privilege of founding and chairing an organisation called Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights here in the UK, and I have all my life been hugely inspired by what Bobby Kennedy stood for and how he articulated it, perhaps. Like no other politician, he talked about words that are quite childlike, really, that should be at the heart of public policy, such as compassion and dignity and kindness and things like that. Those, I mean, a child would never explain those three words, but that's what they mean. And it's really about bringing a more humanness to society. Children, the world to children is explored through human beings and their relationships and how they expand those relationships. And if we brought that to business, if we brought more kindness to business, or more humanity to business, if we rewarded people with the autonomy that we gave them, or the mastery of being able to learn things, or the connectedness that they have, so business succeeds, in my view, about building a culture that people want to be at work, they understand how they contribute to the overall mission, and they understand how they relate to everybody else. But it is something internal to them. They're not at work because between 9 and 5 they're paid X amount of money and then they can go home. Most people want more reward than that, and the best entrepreneurs are the ones that define a mission and then harness a way for everyone to understand how they contribute to that. It's the NASA landing a man on the moon, the janitor said, who worked at NASA. That's what I do, I land a man on the moon. He felt part of a team. So what Kennedy was really talking about in the 60s was really that bringing together people and finding more in common than the differences that they had. But he gave another speech once, which was actually a quote from Alfred Lord Tennyson back in the 1800s, which he used endlessly. And I think this is really relevant to innovation, invention, and entrepreneurship. It always has been. He said, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. I dream things that never were and ask why not." Now, children are notorious, famous for asking why all the time. What they often mean is why not? And I love to say, challenge the status quo. Why not? Why not? Why not? And I may be wrong. There may be many reasons why not, for 99 out of 100 reasons. But that one time where you can do something different, change the status quo, especially in business, that gives you your competitive advantage. It gives you your unique selling point. It gives you your patent or your trademark over what you're developing. And it gives you an opportunity that if you're brave enough to take it and brave enough to iterate and learn as you're developing your product, whatever it is, then that's where you can get to.
Totally.
I mean, I know you've not just been involved in business, and it's not just Ella's Kitchen. I mean, you've founded a number of businesses, but also you've worked with charities and sort of organisations with social purpose. How do you foster this kind of thinking within an organisation? Well,
some of the organisations I've worked for have taught me so much about that exact thing. Sesame Street, iconic American children's television program. I'm on the board of Sesame Workshop that makes them. They have, I was just talking about mission. They have the best mission I have ever heard from any company. We are here to help kids grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. We make television programs. We do stuff off screen and in their communities. The way they've articulated that so that everybody knows how they contribute to it is and how it's articulated is fantastic. So I've learned from things like that. Then I have taken ideas of thinking like a child, or thinking with an open mindset and an iterative process, to other areas which perhaps that's been more unlikely. So I'm privileged to chair, as an independent chair, London's Child Obesity Task Force for the Mayor of London, and put that task force together, set our goals, and really our whole approach to that huge problem, 40% of London's children are not at a healthy weight, how do we change that, has been to look through the eyes of the people that are living with obesity and unhealthy weight. Those children, why do they do what they do? What are their behaviours? How do we give them the capabilities, the opportunities, the motivations to change any behaviour by helping the environment be more lived in? Now, one of the things we did within that. Well, part of the transport system is part of the challenge. Too many cars, too poor air, and that thing. Instead of just going straight to the planners and the civil engineers and the boroughs, we got a bunch of 7-year-olds to start with, and we said, here's Lego. Here, can you build for us an unhealthy city? So they built the streets that they know, and they, we had some of the Nelson's column and all of that we put with it. So they built it and had great fun doing that. We said, then now make it healthy. And so they made little changes, and some of them were obvious. Some of them wanted to put like more fruit and vegetable shops and things like that. Others came up with ideas that we have taken back to the professionals because they'd have never thought about that. Why? I would go on the streets more if they weren't all boring grey pavements. Why are they grey? Why aren't they stripes? Why aren't they orange, one little girl said? Because it would be fun to be on them. And you think, well, it's not going to cost any more money to make them orange or to make them striped, to put hopscotch down there. Or another one wanted living zebra crossings so that there's stuff to do there and there's life around there. And all great ideas. So we've taken them and taken them. Adults would never have thought of that because they're coming from a different perspective. So if you're a planner, which I guess is a very serious job in a metropolitan city about keeping people safe and keeping costs down, you're going to do what you did before because you know it's going to work. You're not bothered really around the overall health aspect of the London's population. You've got a different job to do. If you can be opened up that your job is part of its mission is to help people be healthier, and you invite people in with it who have got totally different experiences, like children, you're going to be opened up to new ideas. And I think in business and in society, we've just got to open way, way, way more doors. Listen to people with lived experience about how things impact them, and then be prepared to adapt and cajole and listen to that. One of the keys to this is about divergent thinking, I think. So as an organization, as a business, how do we encourage divergent thinking? Because divergent thinking is a measure of creativity. And it was Sir Ken Robinson, the guy who's given the most ever watched TED Talk, did some research on this. And he found that 3 to 5-year-olds, of which all of us were once, 98% of us thought divergently as we went through our day-to-day lives. Which divergent thinking kind of means we can think of two things at once. We don't go with a preconceived idea of what the solution is, and we explore and we just kind of iterate our way there. So 98% of us, by the time we've gone through schooling and our brains have developed and parenting and corporate life and stuff takes us, by the time we're 25, 2% of us are actually thinking like that day to day. So in my way of thinking, 96% of creativity in the world has disappeared. It was once there and now it's disappeared. And my God, we need creativity in the world right now if we're trying to find solutions to business or social problems. So how do we rekindle the fact that we all thought divergently and bring it back? And play is a great way within the workspace to be able to do that. But lots of things to do with being a toddler are too. That's giving people the imagination and self-confidence to express their opinion, those sort of things. You know, in small business, any business, thinking of ways to encourage your team to think divergently, which may be very simple things like, you know, we all have what we think are insolvable problems at work. We just can't find a solution or can't get out of the way of thinking. What I used to do with my team is say, okay, tomorrow morning, let's all go to work a different way. And let's have this meeting in a different place at a different time. And if people start going to work a different way for a week, they'll start, when they go, after a week, if they go back to the way they used to get to work, they will notice things about their journey that they used to take for granted. That's the same in our meetings. That's the same we look at our business problems. We just need to take ourselves out of the normal and go back to look at things in a different way. And kids do that exceptionally.
Paul, absolutely brilliant. Thank you very, very much. I mean, I talk about unshackling your thinking often. And I think if everybody was to just sort of stop and maybe ask the question, how would a 5-year-old do this? You know, what kind of answer would they come up with? Maybe let's go ask one. You know, I think everybody would start to unshackle their thinking and start seeing new possibilities.
I did ask a 5-year-old this morning about the plane that takes the middle seat, and Simon, you'll be glad to know Erin Bradshaw had the same idea as you. She thought, put something fun in the middle. I said, what if you couldn't sit beside your mum and dad? And, you know, what would you do? And she said, I put a game. I put something fun in. So, and when you think, then you could still amuse them. And so, yes, we might be onto some good planning for British Airways. So that's
a great example. I have a Tesla car, and it's got some features in that show exceptionally childlike thinking from the designers. One, it's got, if you get bored of your sat-nav map, you can go onto Mars, and you're at this little rover and you're going around the Martian landscape, which has no practical purpose to it except to put a smile on your face. There's a little fart noise thing that you can put around the car, which just puts a smile on your face as well, especially your kids' faces as you're doing it. So I just think the culture that allowed that to get not only on the first drawing board, but through a prototype and then into a final product that is a really serious product, obviously, just shows that they will have a culture that promotes imagination and creativity, and they're brave enough to be human and playful and have a laugh as what they're doing. And through that, they're designing some exceptional design, some exceptional forward thinking, and they're solving a problem by bringing us electric cars and taking emissions away.
Absolutely. And you're right that those are the memorable things. We were in Norway a few months ago before lockdown, and we drove around Oslo with a friend of mine who owns a Tesla. And if you ask my girls, what can you remember about Oslo and the Tesla, they'll say it farts. Yeah. And that's it. Fantastic.
So all that's done is put a smile on people's faces, which costs nothing, which gives memories, which gives emotion. Like, why don't we all do that far more often? And that's why, and besides that little smile, it then permits you to open up your thinking in other areas of what you're doing.
Fantastic. Paul, thank you very, very much for joining us. It's been a wonderful conversation. Helen, thank you for joining us too. Guys, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again on another episode of Pep Talks. Take care.